Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I've got another front porch to show you. This is part of the Art Impressions Front Porch series, and there are several sets in this series. Let's get started by taking a look at the stamp set we're going to be using today. And this one is called the Front Porch Garden Set, and isn't this beautiful? You get all these beautiful images. You get vines, the topiary, the wreath, a couple of little potted plants, a little sign for the front door, and some little rain boots. There's just so many cute items. It does come with the coordinating dies, and I also have that steel die cutter that I'm going to use to separate those dies. That's brand new in the Art Impressions line as well. So let's get started with our stamping. I've got some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock and my VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I've placed that sticky mat in my Misty stamp positioner just to hold that paper in place. And I will list and link all the products I'm using today down below and also on my blog. So let's go ahead and ink these up, and then I'm going to use my Stampendable stamp press to press that out. I do want a second one of that vine, so I'm going to go ahead off camera and stamp a second one. Now I'll be listing the colors we're using in the upper left hand corner as we go along, and to get started I'm using the light green and the deep green. And I'm using my Zig Clean Color markers to do my coloring. I started with the lighter color, added a little bit of the darker green for some shading, and then I'm coming in with a little bit of yellow, and I'm just going directly onto the paper with the yellow. You do want to clean it off in between because you will get some of that green ink on your marker, and you want to get rid of that. Now I've got beige and mid brown, and I'll do the trunk of that little topiary. And then I'm going to grab the Smoky Teal, and this is a really pretty color, and I'm going to do that little pot. I'm adding that color to each side of the pot, and then I'm carefully pulling that in towards the center. And you can remove ink. You can see there I'm just grabbing some off that image and scribbling it onto my scrap paper. While I had that Smoky Teal out, I'm going to go ahead and do this little watering can. And again, I'm just going to use that same color to do my shadowing. Now for all the blending, I'm using the Zig blender pen. You could also use a water brush here as well. So I did leave in all the coloring. I know a lot of you like to follow along and do your coloring, so I left that in, and again I have all those colors listed as we're going along. Here I'm just using those same two greens that we used on the topiary to color in these leaves. I'll just show you a couple of these, and then I'll do the rest off camera. Next I'm grabbing the peach pink, and I'll just do a few of the little tulips. I'm going to do 3 different colors in this little sprinkling can, and now I'm switching to the light violet. And for the last couple of them, I'm going to use yellow, and I'll use a little bit of orange to do some shadowing. Now, keep in mind that the indexing for these images is right on the packaging, and it's a great source to follow along, a great source for adding your shadows, where to add them. It's perfect, so you can just kind of lay that alongside you as you're doing your coloring. It's really helpful. Now I want to color in these little spring boots, these little rain boots, and I'm going to use that same yellow and orange. And then for the base of the shoe, I'm using the light gray, and then I'm going back to the yellow and orange for those little dots, and I'll add that light gray in between those dots as well. Then I thought the sole of the shoes needed a little bit more darkening as well as this top portion, so I brought in some of the mid gray. Let's go on to these little flowers, and I'm going to use the pale orange. I'm going to just put the orange in the center, the pale orange in the center, and then pull it out towards the edges, and I will leave the tips of those petals white, just because I think I just wanted them to be very soft. And then for the centers of those flowers, I'm going to add a little bit of light brown. And for the leaves on this one, I'm using the moss green and the mid green. And I'm just trying to change out the green colors that I'm using on this project, just to give it a nice variety. And here again, I'll add the lighter color first, a little bit of the darker color on the base of the leaves, and then I'll pull it out towards the tips. And then I've switched over to that light violet, and I'm going to do those larger flowers on this wreath. And then I've got the yellow and orange again to do several of the smaller flowers. And then peach pink for a few. I think I used that on about 2 or 3 of the other flowers. So just again trying to mix and match. I've got the light green and the deep green for some of the leaves, and I'm going back to that yellow. So just kind of mixing and matching my colors here. And then I've got light gray and mid gray to do this other pot. And I'll start with the light gray, and then I'll add just a little bit of the mid gray right along the edges, and I'll do the same thing we did with that smoky teal pot. I'll just kind of pull that color in towards the middle. So do keep in mind there are several videos that I've done in the Front Porch series. I used one of the brand new sets that came out in 2023. It was the Front Porch Patriotic card, and on that I used some metallic texture paste to do the background. So I did like a night sky with this really pretty metallic stars in the sky. So you might want to check that out. And then I've also done a Front Porch Valentine card, which was this beautiful craft color cardstock. So I kind of kept it in the pinks, reds, and that craft color cardstock. So it's very subtle. Then I also did a Front Porch Party pop-up. For that one, the front porch pops up when you open the card. So when you open it up, you have this interactive pop-up element. And I'll give you the instructions in that video as well. And then there's a Front Porch Harvest door. And there was a Front Porch farmhouse, which was more, I did it more in like an Americana theme, kind of a patriotic Americana theme. So that was really fun. And there was also an Easter set. Here's all that coloring done, showing you close up what I've done. And then I'm grabbing the coordinating dies, and I'm going to go ahead and tape those down with a little bit of Post-it tape. And then I'll run these through the Sizzix Sidekick machine. So again, on those videos that I mentioned, I will list and link those down below and also on my blog if you'd like to check those out. I know a lot of you are collecting the Front Porch series, as I am. So it's kind of fun to see what other people have done with them. So keep in mind you will need the Front Porch stamp set. That comes with the coordinating dies as well in order to create your front door. And we're going to be using the Front Porch, that little welcome mat, and that sentiment Home Sweet Home a little bit later on. Now, I couldn't quite find the yellow that I wanted in my Zig markers. So I'm going to my Tombow dual tip marker, and I'm using this kind of pale yellow. It's number 991. And again, that will be listed below for you. And I'm going to just add that color around the edges. And I am going to use my Zig blender pen to blend this out. You could use the Tombow blender pen. There is a specific blender pen made by Tombow that will also do your blending. I do tend to reach for the Zig because it is a little bit wetter, and I find that on these larger surfaces it's a little bit easier to move the ink around. But that's up to you, and you can again also use water here. So I'm creating this card for my son and his wife. They just bought a brand new house, and it's kind of a creamy yellow color, but I just wanted to kind of pay homage to that by creating the front door in that color. So I'm going to create this as a Home Sweet Home card, a new home card, but certainly you could change out your sentiment to be whatever you prefer. Now I've got some light gray, and I really want to keep all the trim work almost white. I'm just adding the light gray just to create a few shadows. Now after I did the top, the peak, I didn't think that was quite dark enough. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of a darker color. But for right now, I'm just going to fill in with that light gray, just again adding some shadows. And this is really easy to do. You just add a little stripe of the gray along the edges and then just pull it out until it goes almost white. So it's really simple to do. And here's where I'm going to grab that mid gray and just add a few more shadows. And I'll add those up towards the peak. Again, I just didn't think it had enough definition there, so I thought I would just darken up some of those little areas and then just kind of pull it in towards the middle. I'll do the same thing at the bottom of the door, and then I'm switching over to sand. This sand color is really pretty, and I'm going to put that right along the bottom of the door, and then I'll pull that down. Now I did want to give these little bricks a little bit more dimension, so I'm going to add a little bit of color to each one of these, kind of making sort of an L shape along the left-hand side of each of those little bricks, and then pulling that over, and it'll give those a little bit more dimension. Most of this isn't going to show, so don't worry too much here. Most of this is going to get covered by all the little pieces we're putting down, but I did want to show you how I did this. Now that that's all set, I'm quickly going to color in this little mat with some light gray. I'm just going to add some shadows to each side and pull in towards the middle. Let's grab some Post-it tape and that coordinating die, and we'll go ahead and die cut these. Now keep in mind when this die cuts, it's going to cut out the window openings and it's going to cut that door so that it opens and closes, which is really fun. And that little mat will sit right on the porch there. I've got the Altenew deck planks. This is a 3D embossing folder, and this is going to create the look of wood for our house. So I'm just lining that up nice and straight, and then I'm using my Spellbinders 3D embossing plate to run that through. So I've got the base plate, the embossing folder with the paper in it, and then my 3D embossing plate. I ran that through about 3 times, and I love that little ridge that's created in the planks, but I did decide to darken those up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is go back to that light gray marker, and I'm going to just add that color right in between each of those little wood slats. And that's just going to give this a little bit more dimension and kind of define those slats a bit better. And then I'm just gently blending that out. You can see that up close. So now I've got the Art Impressions Harvest Journal paper pack, and I thought I'd grab that kind of yellowy gold and white stripe. I wanted to put something behind those window openings and behind the door. Now this is a great way, if you want to put a sentiment behind the door, it's a great way to do that. You can stamp on this striped paper before you attach it to your door, and then just place it right behind. I'm just using some Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. I didn't put any glue on the door because I'm going to pop it up just a little bit. I just wanted it to look like it had a little bit of dimension. Now I've got a 3/4 inch by 4 1/4 inch piece of Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. I've got my twisted Citron Distress Oxide ink. I'm just using a Hero Arts blending brush to blend that out. And then I'm switching over to the Rustic Wilderness to add a little bit of shadow at the bottom of this grassy border. For a little bit more texture, we'll spatter this panel. I'm going to grab some of that Rustic Wilderness. I'm placing some on my glass medium mat. I'm spritzing that with a little bit of water from my distress sprayer, and I'll use a small paintbrush and spatter that panel. So we can set that aside to dry. Now let's create the card base. This piece of paper measures 11 inches by 4¼ inches. I'm scoring it at 5½ inches, so it'll be a standard A2 size top folding card. So the finished card will measure 4¼ by 5½, and that's what this panel measures as well. So I'm placing some adhesive all around the back, and I'll line this up on my card. We can now add some glue to that grassy border. And then let's go ahead and start adding all of our little pieces. This is the fun part. I love when you get to the point where you can just start adding everything. And I'm going to add that front door. I'm just lining up that porch with the grass. So the back of that porch I'm lining up with the top of the grass. Now I've got that little welcome mat. Some of these I will pop up with some 3D foam squares, and some of these will just lay flat. You can see these vines are a little bit long, so I will trim some of that away. And I think even at the end off camera, I trimmed a little bit off that left side. So I'll clean these up a bit, but I think later on I did take a little bit more off that left one. And these are just so pretty. Keep in mind, these vines would be great for lots of other projects. You could just use them to create a border on your card or to put them around a frame. They would be really nice. All of these front porch sets mix and match as well. Each set has a variety of different wreaths, plants, and all sorts of little seasonal elements, so you can mix and match these with many of your other cards and projects. I've got these little foam squares, and I'm just going to pop up this topiary, which that's one of my favorite stamps. I just love that topiary. I think it's so pretty. Here I'm just adding some foam dots to the right hand side of that pot, and then some glue on the left hand side, just so it will lay nice and flush with the little topiary pot. Here again, I'm just going to pop up this little watering can and these little boots. So you can see how fun these are to put together. It's like creating a little dollhouse. So now we have all of that done, and the last thing I wanted to do is I'm not going to put a sentiment on the inside of the door, but you certainly could. You could put a little critter there, or something would be cute. A cat or a dog would be really cute. But I'm just going to put a couple little pop dots right inside that door just to give the illusion that it opens and closes. Now I've got that sentiment Home Sweet Home from that front porch set. I'm going to place it on one of my acrylic blocks. This is from the Watercolor travel box from Art Impressions. You get 3 acrylic blocks and you get a little watercolor palette. You also get the box, and it's a great way to store your little supplies, your paintbrushes, and all those kinds of little travel items. So here I've got the journal template die set, and I've used this many times in videos. I'm going to grab that little label die. And that set is designed to create a journal with all the pages and all the little embellishments. But I like to use it for all these separate little pieces. So I've grabbed that label die, I'm running it through the Sizzix Sidekick machine. And then I'm just coloring in that little heart with that same pale yellow marker. I've gone around the edges with the Twisted Citron and then the Rustic Wilderness. Now I've got a 0.1 millimeter Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen. This is a permanent black pen. I'm just going to create some little stitch marks around the edges, and then I'll put a couple little hash marks on either side. This is just going to make this a little more interesting, make it a little more fun. I'll pop that up over top of the little front porch. So that's going to again add a little bit of dimension to the card. And then I'm going to add a couple little stitches to this sprinkling can. Now I've got that white gel pen. I'll go ahead and add some white highlights to some of these items. And then I've got the diamond glaze. This is just a clear glossy glaze, and I'm just going to put a little touch of it on that heart. Again, it's the little details I think that bring the card together. So once that was all dry, let me give you a closer look at the finished card. And I just love this. I just think it's so cute. These little sets are just so much fun. And again, try to mix and match these sets together and just have fun with it. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.